So from our playtest and just my experience, I think that the block density needs to be a little bit higher. This is kind of playing out like an easy speed map, which is fine for a first map. We can start doing trickier things later. I'm just going to change this to 1000, which is probably a better place for it to be. Yeah, it's a bit more of a tricky speed map, so maybe we can go back to a couple places here. Where does it start? That density is fine. Probably around this level, the density needs to be a little bit higher in order to open up more paths for better players. So we can do something like that. Maybe just have some trickier blocks, which you don't need to jump on, but if you want to get a better time, might be required to do so. And that adds a little bit of challenge. Same here. Can add some, maybe just switch up the geometry. So I'm going to go through and speed map this part as well. So you can see that the Bhop process we're doing today is very flowy, it's innovative, you come up with ideas as you go, and that's why we are keeping the map structure very loose, very easy to change. This is definitely not the best way to make a map. I mean, if you wanted to plan out levels, plan out different rooms, have an idea of what the map's going to do, I highly recommend that. However, we're just trying to make a map and trying to make a map in a short amount of time. We just want you to get your first map out, learn from it, what works, what doesn't work, what you need to improve on. So that's just what we're doing now. With the booster, you got to remember that newer players will be playing this. They might not necessarily have enough speed, so we need to make it a little bit easier for the newer players. This also has the added benefit of when the better player is boosting off this, they're going to have to dodge and weave out of these tall blocks to ensure they don't lose their speed. So that gives us a little bit of extra challenge. Okay guys, let's have another quick test through. This is what mapping is all about, iterative testing. Make sure we're happy with the flow, the difficulty. So far it's pretty easy. Start using some of those new blocks. I think the density is high enough now that some interesting routes can be established. That's probably still too powerful. Let's just go back down. But you can see that if we were a noob, we got teleported here. Okay, maybe this distance too far because you can't quite jump to it, and you don't want levels where you have to pre-hop. But if we're a noob, we can't make it all the way. Oh, and these are the wrong heights as well, so good thing we're testing it out here. Well, 750 wasn't enough, but 1000 seems too high, so probably have to go, let's see, 1000. Maybe 950 will hit the mark. And cool. Alright, so let's go tweak that booster pad. Save it first, because sometimes when you open up entities, the game crashes. Good, no crash. Change that to 950. And we need to bring these blocks up. And yeah, we've got a basic map going. It's pretty simple. I'm sure there's some decent lines that can be found in it. We've got about half the map to go, so let's start working on that. So at this part, we can be a little more experimental, make it a little more difficult. Unless you want to keep the map easy, you can continue going on this style, but I'm just going to try some crazy things. Not too crazy, and sometimes they work out and people love them, sometimes they don't and they hate them, but you just learn from that so that your next map will be better. Okay guys, I'm just going to stop the speed because I want to show you something I haven't shown you yet. So I like to keep my map cyclic, so I think my end zone is going to be right above my start zone. So this is going to go into a boost area. And now I want this next part to be essentially a sloped part of the map. So how do we actually create slopes? At the moment we only understand how to make flat blocks. There's actually two methods to do this. The first is we click on the block and we click again, and that brings up our third scalar mode, and we can do that and that will skew the block into an angle. Now I don't particularly like this method because it's hard to get the block to line back up to the grid. So we're not going to use this. Let's just hit Ctrl Z to bring it back to that level. We're actually going to use the slice tool, which is something I haven't really shown you guys yet. So here it is down here. The clipping tool, Shift X, while with the block selected, that highlights it red, and then we can just click and drag, and you can see here we're basically defining where we're going to cut through our block. So let's say we want there, you can see the red, it's going to say get rid of, and the white is going to keep. Now if we click Shift X again, it will switch. So that will delete the right side, that will delete the left side, and that will keep both sides. It will just split the block. So we're going to delete that side, and not that it really matters, but just to keep it clean, we're also going to trim that side. And now we have a angled section of the map, but it also aligns perfectly with the grid. So that is why we do it that way. Okay, I'm just going to finish off the last parts of the map and then we will be done. This is another interesting time to bring up things such as, or you have to consider what the map will be used for. So in a normal bhop environment, this is fine. However, what if the person was using a low grab style? Now, so it requires a bit of knowledge about the low grab style. However, I believe, and this is just an educated guess, that with low grab, even with low grab, they're not going to be able to make this distance. Just in case though, we'll bring this entire block up and we will make a small step up section here. Now we can delete that. Alright guys, I'm trying some trickier things for these last couple of levels. You can see here though on my top view it's getting very messy because I have these layered over each other. So I'm going to introduce you to something called viz groups. So basically viz groups work like layers. I can select a whole bunch of stuff, put it in a viz group, and then easily hide and disable it. So to start a viz group, we can double click on a block, and go edit groups, and then we can add a new group and call this new group top underscore level. Doesn't really matter. Choose a color. Let's make it, I don't know, green. Great, and now we can see top level. So we're selecting this block and we're saying its viz group is in the top level. This block here. Now if we turn that off, it disappears. There's also some predefined viz groups. So for instance, we can turn all the entities off. Oops. We can turn the sky off. We can turn the geometry off. And we can also turn stuff like func detail off. So this is a good way of checking if your map is efficient. So we look through, yep, all the floor is world brush, and we have no Bhop blocks basically. However, if you got a situation where you say turned off, if you turned off all your func details and you still got some brushes showing up, that means they're not func detail and they're going to add to the compile time of your map. So you'll have to hit Control T and turn those into a func detail. And now if you turn off func detail, it is gone. And we probably just leave that block there, why not? So yes, so going through these first, so you can see here, we're trying to map around here. So we might just select everything on the front view here. Oops, got the wrong layer. Let's try that again. Select everything. Why isn't that selecting? I'm clearly in the wrong part of the map. Yes, I am. Select this. Good. Unclick. Oh, hold down Control to unselect. Yep, and now we can just go user. Actually, holding down Control, double click this, top level, apply, and then we can hide that whole top level and bring it back nice and easy. So that's going to help you, especially as your map gets larger, to sort through your geometry basically. So I'll just finish off the rest of this map. Okay, you guys can see that I'm kind of just chucking something together here. Yeah, making maps is, well, I mean, it can take you months to make a good map, or we're just trying to make a map in a couple hours. So hopefully, you can follow along at the pace I'm going, or you can put more effort into your map, more testing, more iteration, more planning. That will equal a better map. I'm just showing you how do you actually get a map going and how do you just make one. So that's the goal here. We can test this now. So we just expand out our big old box. Okay, yep, so we're definitely not going to be able to get up there with low grav. Just bunny hop through the map. We're not going to take any obvious shortcuts because that defeats the purpose. You can see we're getting very low frame rates. I'm on a 1070 here and I usually get about 700 FPS, and at the moment I'm getting about 120, and that's because our map is completely open and unoptimized. So this is why we put effort into optimization, even on an old engine like this one, yeah, it can get very unoptimized very quickly. So it's just rendering the entire map at once now. Just going to go through, make sure everything more or less works, test this new height. Yep, I'm happy with that height. Proceed through the rest of the map. I think it's a good length at this point. It's going to take us a while to get to the end. Bunny hop through the whole thing. Yep, had the goal of being slightly more difficult because I cannot do it apparently. This block's too far away, we'll need to fix that. That's fine. This part, I'm not sure how it's going to work out. Yep, that's also fine. We could have probably jumped up there. Let's keep going. We'll definitely be making this level a bit more interesting. Let's see how this booster works out. Alright, we'll need to increase that booster strength, but so far I'm more or less happy with how it's going.